Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakah Kwadash, double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and salutation to all you Akim out there doing this work in sincerity and charity with humiliation across the four winds. To you I salute. This is the brother Yahweh Sab from the GMS Bahamas Camp. Back at you. Little brief lesson. A lesson entitled Farming is Coming as Well. With this war, what's going on right now in with Iran and Israel and Babylon, and we know that them other countries like China and Russia are ready to get in this war as well. But we know that famine is coming as well with this war. Famine is coming with this war as well. There's going to be a shortage of food because right now with the crisis with the oil, right now Iran, they only allowing certain ships, oil ships, to come through the strait. And they denying Babylon and whoever allies they have left from coming through, that they won't be able to get no oil. So we know famine is right around the corner with this war. Famine is right here as well. You get a lot, like right now what's going on in Ukraine and Russia. They get inside some part of Ukraine, they get food shortage. Even right there in Iran, how they fighting that war, Iran and Israel, food ain't easy to get right now in them places as well because of the war. And not only that, right there, right even in Babylon, because one other night I was watching one documentary on YouTube with a couple of states in Babylon and the sea, how some of the people are living, mainly the people would live on the streets. They eating out the garbage can, and I ain't talking about no one or two, I talking about you get like a whole, you get like communities of homeless people on the street. Communities, they get tents and other little makeshift little things set up whereby they could sleep or live or do, and they eating out the can. And then you get these charity companies, these charity people is coming around and bringing food and things for them as well. But like I say, with this war come famine, and we know this is a part of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai judgment, the lack of food, and this war and how this oil this oil flowing system running right now. We know famine coming, we know famine coming. Famine right now, they ain't on a big scale, but and you get in plenty countries, even right now in Venezuela, they lack of food. Cuba, the people them down there, they lack of food because of what's going on. They can't get the oil and things like how they want it. So they can't really produce nothing. They can't really make nothing like how they usually do it. They can't really farm nothing because they ain't got no fuel to run their equipments and all of these different things to farm and make food for themselves. But like I say, farming is coming in a major way as well. And we know all of this is a part of Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai plan. So we also got to prepare for that. That's the next big major prophecy coming around as well, and that coming around in due time. That ain't far, because right now with the war in Iran, Israel and Babylon, famine is coming as well. This is the book of Sirach, chapter 40 and 9. Sirach 40 and 9, and it reads, death and bloodshed, strife and sword, calamities, famine, tribulation, and the scourges. And when you really look up the word scourges, that speaks about war, famine, or diseases. That's punishment from Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. That's the way he got it set up. Punishment from Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Like I say, we know famine is coming along with this war because of the shortage of the oil, and then Iran, Salakia, only allowing certain countries to have this oil come through the strait and denying Babylon and their allies. So that means Babylon, along with their allies, they can have problem with foods in a short order because they won't be able to get the fuel to transport and produce no food. So a lot of people gonna die too from this famine. All of this is a part of Yahweh Shemel Washai plan. Let's look at Jeremiah 42:16, and it reads, Then it shall come to pass that the sword which ye feared shall overtake you there in the land of Egypt, and the famine whereof ye were afraid shall follow close after you there in Egypt, and there ye shall die. Boy, tell you one thing, brothers. I think the painfulest death to die from is hunger, because your stomach can be eaten from the inside out. Food, hunger is a painful way to die. Because your stomach will be eating itself from inside out. You can imagine you can't get no food, you can't get nothing to eat, and these things coming through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemel Washai. These things coming, famine coming along with this war. This war can bring famine, and then you get a lot of people, mainly Jakes, 2/3 at least, I'll say, they don't believe this gonna affect us in no way, because they always saying this ain't happening here in our country. And then they say, oh, look how far that is. Then they always say too, oh, you don't want this to happen to Babylon, you don't want that to happen to Babylon. But they don't know all of this is prophecy from the spirit, from through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Because I had a conversation with an elderly guy. He older than me, probably early 60s, and I was telling him about the things what can happen, through the scriptures, through the spirit and power of Bashem Yahushai. I was training him, and he telling me, man, he ain't believing nothing what I tell him. He telling me, boy, you ain't want Russia them to put no missile in Babylon. You ain't want this to happen, cause then it's just, I say this can't happen anyhow. Babylon saying America is the powerfulest country in the world. Babylon never been into no war yet and lose. But I tell them, I say, but Babylon they can take this war inside of Babylon. This war can end up on Babylon soil itself, America itself. And yet, he don't believe this can happen. But then yet he keep telling me, I don't want it to happen. I tell him, it ain't up to me, brother. This ain't my choice. I ain't got no horse in this race. All of this is designed through the spirit and power. But I ain't tell him like that, but I know all of this is designed through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. But then he ain't understand what's going on, because he believes it's just a war. I tell him we can soon be a shortage of food as well too. We ain't be able to get nothing, because 90, maybe 85-90% of what we consume here in our little country, the Bahamas, it comes from America. And we can't get nothing here unless it come by boat, which is them cargo ships or cargo plane. So we know farming coming. Farming can be a big part of this war as well. A lot of people gonna die because of lack of food, and we notice it coming. All right. Okay, this second address 6, Salakia 6 on 22. And suddenly shall the sore places appear unsown, the full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty. God, you can imagine when this happen, when these people can't find no food. You can imagine how this place can be. Especially these people, what these people would have little kids to feed. Not only little kids themselves and probably the elderly people. This place can be crazy. This place can be crazy out here. And Jake don't understand this. They don't believe this can happen. They don't believe these things can happen. But through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemel Shai, we know these things coming. And that's why we preparing ourselves. You know what I mean? Through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemel Shai, we preparing ourselves. Through trying to be built up in these scriptures. Trying to stay in the spirit and be prepared for whenever these things come. Whenever these things come. So get the next scripture. You end with this one. Just the book of Ecclesiastes. Sirach 39. Salakia 39 and 28. There be spirit that are created for vengeance, which in the fury lay on sore strokes in the time of destruction. They pour out their forces and appears the wrath of him that made them. All of this is designed through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. So farming is coming along with this war. This war will bring farming because of lack of. It can be oil shortage. Wouldn't be able to get no food in the short order. And this World War III, it start. It's just a matter of time before the food starts laying down now. And we know that can happen through the spirit and power of Hashem Yahweh Shai. So hope this lesson was edified and served its purpose. Shalom, brothers. Shalom.